just gonna say. Thank you, Elaine. Welcome. We're glad you're all here. We're here to sing, to pray, to greet, to wonder, to thank, and to give praise. I'm Lori Crockett, and I'm your speaker for today. I want to share a prayer, lamentation, that I wrote about a week ago as an exercise for creation spirituality. Higher power, all is confusion and fear. Fear of being other, fear of being different, fear of being cast out, disinherited, sent away in shame, fear of being unloved, unwanted, not needed, not worthy. Where has hope gone? Where have love and compassion gone? Even the angels are crying. I am lost and scared, and I don't know which way to turn. Must I run and hide? I know deep inside there is a place for me, a place for us, where we will be loved, accepted, and at peace. May this day come soon. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the entire congregation, I welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Shenandoah Valley. I'm Sandra Henry Stocker, your worship associate for today's service. We wish to acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Shawnee and the Manahoac tribes who lived in this area prior to the arrival of European settlers, who then took the land for their own. We gather with our doubts as well as our convictions, with our fears and our hopes, with our failures and our aspirations, with our sorrows and our joys. Whether you are joining us today for the first time or you've been a member or friend for many years, we are glad you are here. Whatever faiths you have known, if any, whatever background, whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived here, you are welcome. And now, as Emily comes forward to light the chalice, let us all say together here and online the words for lighting our chalice. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, to share. And I invite you to join with us as we say our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church. The quest for truth is our sacrament. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help our neighbor. To these ends we covenant one with another. Now please stand in body or spirit as we sing our opening hymn, 301, Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky. May our hearts become large enough to recognize our own shortcomings in the ways we have treated others. May our hearts become large enough to extend sympathy to those who have hurt us. May our hearts become large enough to hold the complexity of the human spirit. And that is by Lane Merritt Campbell. And now we will have a time for all ages.
To children of all ages. You don't have to be young to be a child. This book I thought was going to be difficult to photograph, so I'm not putting it up on the screens. That's what Robert and I decided. So, but I can't hold it either, so we're going to put it up here on the stand. So this is a book called The Three Questions. It's written by John Muth, but it's based on a story by, by Tolstoy. And so some of you may recognize that. And the back is, this is so it'll tell you a little bit about what it's going to be about. When is the best time? This is when you have to figure out what to do. Like, you know, you're surrounded by friends, or sometimes people have some problems, and what do you do? What do you say? So when is the best time to do these things? This is Buddhist. Who is the most important one? Who are you going to focus on? And what is the right thing to do? How are you going to help them? So, the three questions. Written for children, I may try and hold it. There once was a boy named Nikolai who sometimes felt uncertain about the right way to act. I want to be a good person, he told his friends, but I don't always know the best way to do that. So Nikolai's friends understood and they wanted to help him. If only I could find the answers to my 3 questions, Nikolai continued, then I would always know what to do. And here they're repeated. When is the best time to do something? Who is the most important one? And what is the right thing to do? Nikolai's friends considered his first question. Then Sonia the heron spoke, to know the best time to do things, one must plan in advance, she said. Gogol the monkey, who had been rooting through some leaves to find something good to eat, he said, well, you will know when to do things if you watch and pay close attention. Then Pushkin, the dog, who was just dozing off, rolled over and said, you can't pay attention to everything yourself, you know. Too much going on. You need a pack to keep watch and help you decide when to do things. For example, Google, a coconut is about to fall on your head. Not very helpful. Now, here we go. We'll take this off and we'll be all right. Nikolai thought for a moment, and then he asked his second question. Who is the most important one? Who are we dealing with here? Well, those who are closest to heaven, said Sonia, circling up in the sky. Those who know how to heal the sick, said Gogol, stroking his bruised head. Those who make the rules, said Pushkin. Nikolai thought some more. Then he asked the third question. What is the right thing to do? Flying, said Sonia. Having fun all the time, said Gogol. Fighting, said Pushkin. Then the boy thought for a while. He loved his friends. He knew they were all trying their best to help him answer his questions, but their answers didn't seem quite right. Then an idea came to him. I know, he thought, I will ask Leo the turtle. You know, turtles always know everything. They've been around for so long. He has lived a very long time. Surely he will know the answers I am looking for. So Nikolai hiked high up in the mountains where the old turtle lived all alone. When Nikolai arrived, he found Leo, the turtle, digging a garden. The turtle was old and digging was very hard for him. I have 3 questions and I came to ask your help, Nikolai said. When is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? And what's the right thing to do? So Leo's going to think. Leo listened carefully, but he only smiled. Then he went on with his digging. You must be tired, Nikolai said at last. Let me help you. The turtle gave him his shovel and thanked him. And because it was easier for a young boy to dig than it was for an old turtle, Nikolai kept on digging until the rows were all finished. But just as he finished that, the wind blew wildly and rain came from the dark clouds. And as they moved towards the cottage, Leo's cottage, for shelter, Nikolai suddenly heard something crying for help. Running down the path, he found a panda bear whose leg had been injured by a falling tree. Carefully, Nikolai carried her into Leo's house and made a splint for her leg out of a stick of bamboo. The storm raged on, banging at the doors and the windows, and the panda woke up. "Where am I?" she said, "and where is my child?" It's really a problem. Oh, so here we go. The boy ran out of the cottage and down the path, and the roar of the storm was deafening. Pushing against the howling wind and drenching rain, he ran farther and farther into the forest, and there he found the panda's child, cold and shivering on the ground. Oh no. The little panda was wet and scared, but alive. Nikolai carried her inside and made her warm and dry, and then he laid her in her mother's arms. Leo smiled when he saw what the boy had done. The next morning, the sun was warm, birds sang, and it was all well in the world, and the panda's leg was healing nicely, and she thanked Nikolai for saving her and her baby from the storm. And at that moment, Sonia and Gogol and Pushkin arrived to make sure everything was okay. Nikolai felt great peace with himself. He had wonderful friends, and he had saved the panda and her child. But he was still a little disappointed. He still hadn't found the answers to his 3 questions. So we asked Leo one more time. The old turtle looked at the boy. "But your questions have been answered." He said. "They have?" said the boy. "Yesterday," I like this, how they do this. "Yesterday, if you had not stayed to help me dig my garden, you wouldn't have heard the panda's cry for help in the storm. Therefore, the most important time was the time you spent digging the garden. The most important one at that moment was me, the turtle. And the most important thing to do was to help me with my garden. Later, when you found the injured panda, the most important time was the time you spent mending her leg and saving her child. The most important ones were the panda and her baby. And the most important thing to do was to take care of them and make them safe." Remember then that there is only one important time, and that time is now. The most important one is always the one you are with, or whoever's sitting next to you, who you're paying attention to. And the most important thing to do is to do something good for the one who is standing at your side. For these, my dear boy, are the answers to what is the most important in the world. That is why we are here. So I think everybody from any age can take something from that. The most important person is the person you're with. The most important time is now. And the most important thing to do is find a way to help them. Thank you.
Today's word for reflection comes from a daily devotional for Unitarian Universalists in recovery. And what we normally do is, and we try to read a meditation every day to guide us in our daily lives. And this is from February 7. I'm just reading one paragraph from it because I'm going to talk about the steps later on. Happily, a program of recovery encourages us to seek a higher power of our own understanding, whether it is one outside of ourselves or one found in human beings, a recovery group, or a certain state of human consciousness. No one is going to tell us what to believe and how to be in relationship with a higher power. It is up to us. Since the 1930s, the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous have been used to help people recover from alcoholism, a disease that at that time had a devastating effect on many, many lives, because until then, there had been no lasting or effective solution to the disease of alcoholism. Most people died or ended up institutionalized. Many programs and ideas had been tried before this time, but basically, until Bill Wilson had an epiphany about working with others and sharing the message, there wasn't any program that led people to change their lives so completely and drastically that they could rejoin society and live as functioning human beings, as respectable human beings who could hold down jobs and support their families and who could become trustworthy and respectable again. In 1935, Bill Wilson, with 5 months of sobriety, was on an out-of-town business trip and was once again tempted to pick up a drink, but instead he picked up a phone and a phone book and called a church. A number of calls and conversations eventually led him to meet with a man named Dr. Bob, who was struggling to get sober. The two men met for the first time on Mother's Day weekend in 1935, and Bill Wilson never had another drink. The men quickly realized that the connection between two struggling individuals was what was important to stay sober. As they embraced the idea of working with others, the AA program was born. Talking to another human being, asking for help, being willing to surrender, and applying a set of actions are what they came to believe worked for them and would work for others. Most of these ideas had been around in a few programs that came before AA, such as the Oxford Group, which was one that Dr. Bob had been a member of. These programs did try to help people, but it all seemed to come together when Bill Wilson, Dr. Bob, and their first recruits, we call them sponsees today, grew to 100 alcoholics, and they decided to write a book and put down on paper just what they had done to stay sober, how it had worked for them, and what others could do if they wanted to stay sober. This book was eventually called Alcoholics Anonymous. They shared their stories and a plan of action, which developed into the 12 steps as they are known today. Over the course of the years, the success of the 12 steps has led many groups of people who suffer from alcoholic addiction and other addictive behaviors to adopt the 12 steps into their fellowship, with almost no changes in the original wording of the book. There are groups today such as Al-Anon, OA, NA, ACOA, and many others. The steps have been embraced by many programs in addition to AA because they are successful at helping people recover from addiction and from other behaviors and lifestyles that are often unmanageable and frequently life-threatening. The steps give people tools to live lives free of addiction and tools to handle living in society. Here are the 12 steps as they appear on the walls of clubhouses and meeting places everywhere. There are AA groups in more than 180 countries, and the book, Alcoholics Anonymous, has been translated into more than 70 languages. So the steps as are presented on the screen. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. I want to take just a few moments to talk about each of the steps. Even though they're short and may seem simple, they're life-changing, often life-saving. They do require sincere action and belief. They do require following certain suggestions. They do require commitment. The steps have helped people find a new and a better way to live and to recover from dysfunctional ways of coping with the world and society. Step 1 says, we admit we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable. Step 1 is called the surrender step. We have to admit we are powerless over alcohol, other substances, or behaviors that are making us sick and causing our lives to be unmanageable. We say we are powerless over people, places, and things, and we come to understand what we can and cannot control. Step 1 asks us to surrender, let go, and ask for help from a higher power or another individual. Surrendering is giving up the insane idea that we will be able to drink or use safely sometime in the future. We have to believe this without reservations. We have to accept that we are not in control, and that is the hardest thing we may ever do, but it may save our lives. The first step also asks us to look at and admit the unmanageability that has been caused by our addictions and the related behaviors. Once we admit we are powerless over whatever substance or behaviors are controlling our lives, we commit to doing the second part of step 1, admitting that our lives are unmanageable. This is when we take a good hard look at how unmanageable our lives are and have been. We have a saying, we will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We own our past, admit to it, learn from it, and use our experiences to help the next sick and suffering individual. We choose not to forget our experiences, but instead use them as a reminder of how unmanageable our lives can be, once again, if we choose to drink or to pick up the behaviors that led us to this low point in our lives. Step 1 is the step we take when we are ready to surrender, and the rest of the steps will lead us to a new way of life and to freedom, serenity, and a peace of mind. In step 1, we surrender to win. The next 11 steps, if worked honestly and sincerely, will teach us how to navigate a world that is often dysfunctional, neglectful, even abusive. The steps are life-saving, and when we do them sincerely and wholeheartedly, huge changes can happen in our behavior, our thinking, and even our belief systems. The steps provide structure, give direction, and most of all, instill hope and a connection with something beyond ourselves, God, the universe, or whatever concept of a higher power we have. God can be a group of drunks or good, orderly direction. Step 2 says, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 2 gets us to trust this higher power of our own conception, or at least come to believe that something beyond ourselves will provide the help we need. We let go of the insane idea that we will be able to drink or use safely sometime in the future, and begin to believe that we will receive the help and guidance that we want and need. We are restored to sanity. Step 3 says, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. This may sound simple, but giving up control, letting go of control, trying to control our lives, other people, and the future. Most people have a very hard time giving up their perceived control and are very fearful of letting go. But the steps are in order for a reason. Before we attempt step 3, we did step 2, where we found some kind of higher power to whom we could give up our control. Step 4 says, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. This is where we are directed to make a personal inventory. Many of us come in lonely, confused, hurting and angry, hating ourselves and others, having loads of guilt and shame. We learn to trust God and clean house when doing this step. We name these fears, angers, hurts, and resentments. We list them and try to understand the underlying behaviors and attitudes that led to them. We examine the behaviors that are often responsible for our feelings. This step helps us look at ourselves and discover our own part in things. Once we understand those deep unconscious motivators that we have let rule us, we can forgive ourselves and we can become free. We finally find forgiveness of ourselves and others. This is described as digesting a big chunk of truth about ourselves. This is where, with the help of a sponsor, we can clear away some of the obstacles to serenity, peace of mind, and self-acceptance. Step 5 says, admit it to God, to ourselves, and to another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. This is where we share our 4-step writings with a sponsor. A sponsor is another human being we have chosen to trust and rely on. When we share what we have written in our 4-step and admit to our own behaviors, the relief is often immediate and freeing. We see this in meetings when a newcomer suddenly has a light in their eyes and a new outlook on life. This is the beginning of true recovery. Step 6 says, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. With the help of the inventory we have taken and the work we have done with our sponsor in steps 4 and 5, we are generally ready to accept and recognize the character defects that have been underlying our actions, our behaviors, and our attitudes. These have been survival techniques and defenses that we enacted to protect ourselves and to somehow survive in a society and a world that we, up until now, may have had trouble being part of. Step 7 says, humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. We move on to step 7, which directs us to ask to have these character defects removed. In step 6, we became ready to have our defects removed, and in step 7, we asked. Step 8 says, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Most of this list will come from the writing we did in our 4-step. Step 9 says, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. This is when we take the list and take action, being careful not to hurt others in the process. Step 9 directs us to complete the inventory process and start making amends. Sometimes these are outright acknowledgments of where we were wrong. Other times we make living amends by staying sober and practicing whatever new behavior that we are working toward. This is when we acknowledge our wrongs and our actions and admit our sincere desire to behave differently. This is not saying I'm sorry, it's saying I was wrong, and then changing our behavior, and that becomes our living amends. Step 10 says, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. This housekeeping step is where we learn to keep our own sides of the street clean. We are directed each evening to take a personal inventory of our day, asking ourselves where we were selfish or self-seeking, and we are asked to promptly admit when we have been wrong. We continue daily self-examination so that we don't harbor anger or resentment, and so we can be free and comfortable in our own skin. Step 11 says, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for his knowledge, for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. Here we start practicing and developing new habits like daily prayer, reading recovery literature, meditating, etc. We choose daily behaviors that give us some kind of connection with a power greater than ourselves, whatever your belief is. We strive on a daily basis to keep the lines of communication open and to keep and nurture our connection with the sunlight of the Spirit. Step 12 says, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Now we're directed to help alcoholics and do service work, which can be anything from setting up a meeting, to making coffee, to being a sponsor, to taking a position within the fellowship or the service structure, to speaking at a meeting, to doing 12-step calls, and basically just being available to help the newcomer. The Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous has grown from 2 individuals to an estimated 2 million people around the world. We learn to pay it forward, and we give it away to keep it. This is the key to why and how it works. One individual working with another. One hand always ready and willing to help another. The gift we are given if we work these steps is a new life. A life based on a conscious daily connection to a power greater than ourselves, and based on always being willing to reach out to help others. And for that, I am responsible. Thank you.
Okay, our Share the Plate recipient is HEARTS. This stands for Hope and Rest Temporary Shelter.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Smelser, and I'm the president of the Hearts Shelter in Front Royal. And I've been here several times in the past. I come every year, it seems like. And thank you very much for having me. I love talking about this mission that we have. So Hearts is for Hope and Rest Temporary Shelter. We were formerly known as the Thermal Shelter of Front Royal. You might remember that. We changed our name at the end of 23 to Hearts. And we are a low barrier shelter. We accept people as they are. And we don't look at background checks. We don't ask for ID. We don't care where they came from or in what state they're in when they get to us. As long as they behave appropriately while they're with us, we're happy to have them. It's interesting that you're talking about the 12-step program, because one of the major issues that we have with our people there is alcohol. And we do have some people with substance abuse issues, but alcohol is really our main reason that people are coming to us unhoused. And it is something that I have watched personally, people over the years, they cannot get out of it. It is so hard. It is the hardest thing I've seen people do or try to do. We have had some successes, but we've had many people pass away over the time that we've been doing this, and all of them except for one, it was all due to alcoholism. So this was very interesting to look at, and I've got some ideas about that. But in Hearts, we allow people to bring their pets. So we've had, over the years, we've had dogs and cats, and last year we had a bearded dragon that was an emotional support pet. And this year, so far, we've had 2 dogs and a cat. So we understand the importance it is for people to not be separated from their pet. A lot of times they won't even come in if they're not allowed to bring their animal. So we're very happy to house them as long as we all can get along peacefully, and so far it's worked out well for us. We partner with many organizations in Warren County. The Humane Society is one of them, so if we need anything from them, they're happy to help us out. Warren Coalition is another, and I see we have Krista here from the Warren Coalition. So the library is very helpful when they house our people during the day, because we're only a night shelter. And CCAP and the food banks, Loaves and Fishes. So we have a lot of community support, other agency support in Warren County for our shelter. It costs us about $2,500 to $2,700 a week to operate, and most of that is payroll. We are able to get some smaller grants, but most grants don't want to give to operations, and that's basically all we are. All of our cost is mostly in operations. We're currently housed in the Front Royal Presbyterian Church in an area that was unused for a number of years for them, and they've allowed us to come in, and this is our 3rd year there, and we're very, very happy to be there and very hopeful that we can continue to be there for years to come. Most of our food is donated, and all of our dinners are donated. You've all donated in the past and brought dinners in the past few years to us. So we don't have a kitchen. Everything has to be brought in hot and fresh, and that's worked out well for us. We have every single night covered I think we're open 16 weeks this season. So we open December 7th we close on the 29th of March this year. So I'm so happy to be here and see everybody again. I feel like I come here once a year and see everybody, but thank you very much for having me. I will be here a little while afterwards if you have any questions. Thank you.
One purpose of the church is to encourage all who gather here to be more generous in spirit and in action. We will gratefully receive an offering to sustain this self-supporting church and its ministries within and beyond our walls. If you are watching online, we hope you will consider making an offering through our webpage, uushenandoah.org. If you are visiting, please feel free to let the bucket pass. Your presence is your gift.
Blessings shall follow us all the days of our lives if we live in and return to right relationships, if we extend grace and forgiveness to ourselves and to others, if we behold mercy as a spiritual superpower.
Now, as Emily comes forward, let us all say together the words for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame but not the light of truth, the warmth of our community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. Go now in peace.
But we have a presentation for you. We all need a smile at this point in time. Thank you. Well, thank you.
Very clever.